It's about, needing to communicate on a verbal level or a scientific level what you're feeling. You need to talk about it. So I think that what you want to do is you want to go out and try and find new relationships, but you want to try to be extremely clear when you meet people and come up with sort of unusual ideas that they may not have thought about before. And I think the odds are that you, by giving voice to that side of yourself that is a little almost peculiar, but it's nice peculiar, you'll feel better. And you will bring in someone that is the right person for you. Thanks for calling.
Okay, thank you. Nancy is on the phone. Nancy is from Yorktown Heights, watching on Cable Channel 12. We thank you for waiting. You're on with Mary Michele. Date of birth, May 12th, 57. 5/12/57.
Good morning, Nancy. How are you?
Hi, Mary. Thanks for taking my call. I'm fine.
Good. Did you have a particular question?
I'm interested in anything that you can tell me about my health and career and possibly my love life. I do have a relationship with someone who's a Taurus. The Taurus, May 14th birthday.
Okay. Same year?
1958.
Okay. Well, let's talk about you. You have the sun in Taurus, but you have the moon in Scorpio. You were born at the full moon. I think people, most of us, human nature, our life is about relationships. We need to learn how to get along with people in all different areas of our life. Parents, children, spouses, where we work, all of those kind of things. People that are born at the full moon, there's a heightened reality around the nature of their relationships. It's the opposition between the sun and the moon is like you have to zero in at times on what your unconscious is doing and then go to the other side and look at what your conscious is doing. And it's just very, very extreme all the time. But in terms of, for your boyfriend, I think that the moon in Scorpio is probably extremely sexy to him. It's very attractive. There is something about the moon in Scorpio that it's magnetic. It brings people in. There's a charisma. So it might not always be easy for you, but it's very attractive to others. You have Mercury in Taurus. You have Venus in Taurus. You have a lot of Taurus planets. Do you work in the arts?
Attempting to be, I'm very interested in writing, and I have a couple of projects going right now.
Okay, well, all these planets in Taurus, you have Mars in Cancer, Jupiter in Virgo. You have luck around your work this year. Money's coming in around your work, and I think that you should more actively pursue getting your writing out there if you haven't done that already. In terms of, what was the particular question about your boyfriend? I didn't...
I guess I was just curious about our relationship, how it may be if you see how it's going.
Well, this year for Taurus is about realizing, with Jupiter transiting Jupiter, going through the sign of Capricorn, it's his sense of self-worth is going to get stronger this year, as will yours. And, usually that will help the relationship.
That sounds very good.
Okay.
I didn't know all this stuff about the moons. That sounds great.
Yes. Well, it's a fascinating study. You can go on and on and on with it.
Very much.
Thanks for calling.
Okay, thank you for calling. Tammy had called. She could not stay on the line, though. Date of birth 6/23/72. And the question that she was going to ask is she going to get married this year? 6/23/72.
Okay. 6/23/72. Okay. This person has the sun in Cancer, the moon in Sagittarius, Mercury in Cancer. Well, if this proposal came around Thanksgiving, I think there's a very, very strong chance of it. Venus in Gemini. There's a lot of Cancer planets here. This person obviously wants to have a family. And I think that if the person that she's thinking of marrying, if the proposal came around Thanksgiving, or you came to the decision together around Thanksgiving, there was an inspiration behind it that you perhaps had not felt with this person before. So I think in terms of timing, that's all I can say about it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, let's get back to the phones. Michelle is on line 1. Michelle, good morning. Your date of birth, December 22nd, 1970. You're watching on Cable Channel 12 in Mount Kisco. Good morning. You're on with Mary Michele.
Good morning.
Morning.
Did you have a particular question?
I wanted to know, I'm getting ready to make a career change, and I was wondering, I have the opportunity to wait a little bit, do this, or I can do it now. I don't know. What do you think? Is this a good time to make a move, or should I wait it out a little bit if I have that opportunity?
Well, you have the sun in Sagittarius, the last day of Sagittarius. You have the moon in Libra. The moon in Libra. Is this business that you might be going into? Is this your own business?
No, it's not. It's just my career. I've taken a break in between college and trying to decide what to do next. So it's it's more education or work. I'm not sure, but
Well, I think if the job is something where you would be working more on your own, where you would be feeling like you're working towards creating something that is going to be your own business, it's a good time to make that change. If you're moving laterally, so to speak, into a position where you're not going to be you're not going to be learning that much, it's not a good time.
So if this is an educational move, you think I should go?
I can barely hear you. I'm sorry. What did you say?
Educational move?
Educational.
Right.
Educational is very good, yes. It's a good time to make a shift along those lines. But in terms of, making money, you don't want to be putting yourself in a job that is not going to be satisfying to your inner needs. And the moon in Libra is about wanting to have your own, being in control in some way.
Right, okay.
Okay?
All right, thank you for calling. And we're going to get to Edward, who is in Connecticut, and to Martha in Yorktown, just a couple seconds away. We're on with Mary Michele. We have one open line at 241-1310, and we'll be back in 1 minute and 5 seconds.
Are you thinking of making a dramatic change in your home? Beauty, elegance, and simple efficiency to any of your rooms? There's a simple solution, and you'll find it at Champion Tile.
Here in the neighborhood, conveniently located across from the post office in downtown Bedford Hills. Champion Tile has a huge selection of Saloni ceramic tile from Spain, Century shower and tub enclosures, and the finest imported tiles from Italy for your individual taste, and all under one roof.
Ceramic tile not only adds beauty to any room, but nothing compares with their strength and durability. And of course, they're so easy to clean and maintain.
Champion Tile has one of the largest supplies of Italian and Spanish ceramic tiles in the entire area, and hundreds of decorative borders as well. And what's more, at prices that can't be beat.
It's Champion Tile beyond all others. Champion selection for neighborhood service, for savings without equal.
And for your convenience, Champion Tile is nearby in downtown Bedford Hills, across from the post office. For your tile, simply dial 666-2828 for Champion Tile. All right, let's get back to the phones now with Mary Michele. Good morning to Edward, who is calling from Fairfield, Connecticut. Date of birth is January 9th, 1925. Edward, good morning. You're on with Mary Michele.
Good morning. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, Edward. Did you have a particular question?
Yes, I do. I have a piece of property I've just listed for sale. And by coincidence, I had someone look at it here just the other night, and they liked the property very much, but there's one hang-up. With reference to let's say, an allowance of people to go down and use our waterfront. And I was just curious as to what the outlook might be into selling this property. I'm January 9, 1925.
How do you feel about them going down and using your waterfront?
Well, it's something, I think it's an unfounded concern because there are only four, it's on a private road, and there are only four houses on this road, and I don't see anyone from the outside coming down.
Right. It's a very good time for you in terms of being able to sell property. You are born at the full moon. You have the moon in Cancer, the sun in Capricorn. So this usually, most decisions in your life have been about, perhaps greater polarity than most of us. It could be with these people that they might, go on about it a bit. But I think in the long run, it is a good time for you to be able to if you want to sell it, to be able to do that throughout the year. Are there other properties that you want to sell?
No, just this one.
Just this one. Well, I think it's a good chance, but I do think that they might show concern about it in a way that it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, perhaps, to you. But I think the end result is, even though they might put you through the ringer a bit, that it will sell.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you for calling, Edward. We're at 12 minutes before the hour. Congratulations, Grandma Martha. Grandchild born February 11th, 1996. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Grandma Martha. Are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay. You wanted to know a little bit about this child?
Yes.
Okay. This child was born with the sun in Aquarius, as I think you probably know. It was born with the moon in Scorpio. So this child will, there's an underpinning of its attachment to its mother that is kind of an intense one. Is it a boy or a girl?
Girl.
Yeah. Well, she will probably, her mother is someone that will give her a tremendous amount, but at the same time there might be a bit of a struggle. Anyway, that's kind of mothers and daughters throughout history, right? I don't think it's anything terribly unusual. But with the sun in Aquarius and Uranus in Aquarius, it's kind of an exciting time for her to have been born. It's someone that is going to be able to envision the future, will be on the cutting edge. The nature of the sign of Aquarius, though, oftentimes is that they can't really realize this until later in life, at least until they're 30. So when they're younger, they have to be encouraged with their far out ideas, because it can be kind of sublimating to them if they're not, because they will have ideas that will be different from other children. I mean, they just will seem a little odd sometimes. So they kind of have to be loved through that and recognize that this will serve them in good stead as the older they get, because it will they will be able to bring great insight and great forward thinking to humanity. Aquarius is the humanitarian sign. And the planet Uranus that rules it was discovered during the time of the French Revolution and the American Revolution and the Industrial Revolution. So as you can see, it's about man and man's equality. It's a very important sign along those lines. Is there anything else?
Is there any, what kind of a career is she apt to have?
She's apt to be in, again, a very forward-thinking career. She could be an astronaut, or she could be involved in computers, or she could be involved in... It rules telepathy. Aquarius rules telepathy, anything to do with technology, forward-thinking things.
Sounds great. What about her health?
It's a little hard to look at her overall health, but I'm sure she'll be fine. Again, you have to be careful of sudden things, and that she's going to be, she's someone that might occasionally want to go faster than she can actually move. Okay?
All right, thank you for calling. And Margaret was such a nice lady. We talked to her at the beginning of the program, June 10th, 1935.
Oh, okay.
And you said call back when she had the book, so guess what? Margaret, good morning. You're on again with Mary Michele.
Hi, Margaret.
Hi, Mary. Thank you so much for taking me again. I started to get jealous listening to everybody getting there.
Oh, okay. Let's see, 1935. Okay, that was the year of the pig. June 10th, 1935. It's considered a very lucky sign in China, the year of the pig. June. Okay.
Bronx, and no one ever has told me my moon. That was one thing I was hoping you could tell me.
Okay, June 10th, 35. You were born with the moon in Libra.
Right.
This is a very harmonious angle. Did you know that?
Oh, I'm not surprised.
Okay, well, the sun in Gemini, the moon in Libra, these are both air signs. It's harmonious. It means that your unconscious and your conscious flow easily from one to the other. And it means, with air, it means about the intellectual understanding of things. You are a very good diplomat. And your mother was probably a diplomat. She was someone that, would weigh the scales of justice on a regular basis. The moon is how we see our mother. So it may not have been the way she ended up being, or the way you ended up understanding her, but certainly as a young child, you saw her as being someone that was very diplomatic and very fair. You have Mercury in Cancer. It went retrograde right before you were born, so it might have been difficult for you when you were younger to learn, to read, it might have come a little harder. But as you got older, let's see, it went direct. Oh, wait a minute, I've lost you now. You were June 10th. When you were about 20 plus 4, about 25 was when your ability to communicate got easier for you to handle. Because to have, the Sun in Gemini and the Moon in Libra, you wanted to be able to communicate and express yourself, and there was something that was kind of holding you back. Does that ring true?
Well, it's possible. I have to review my life. I mean, I was a relatively quieter child than I am now.
Right. Okay. Well, it's a release of tension to be able to talk.
Sure. But I'm very family-oriented. Would this have anything to do with my moons or Cancer?
Well, you have Mercury in Cancer.
Mercury in Cancer, right.
So that's about the family.
Right. Now, if I have a brother who's a Cancer, I get along with him extremely well. I mean, we're very, very close. Is that also because my Mercury is in Cancer?
Right. Well, you probably have a meeting of the minds. Mercury rules the mind.
Right.
So there's you're able to communicate well with this person, your brother.
Sensitive, so I have to be careful because I tend to be a little flip sometimes.
Right. Well, Cancers are overly sensitive as a rule.
Yes, we are.
One other question, if there's time.
Yeah.
That I was influenced by the pig, so I wanted to ask you, what are the qualities of the pig,
The pig is the last animal that arrived, and he's the lucky one. Everyone takes care of the pig. He is given lots of presents. He's given money. The first Ford, the first Rockefeller, the first Carnegie, they were all pigs. It's about, money coming to them. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have, enormous amounts of money, but
no one ever gives me any money, that's for sure.
They don't?
Nope.
Well, in some way they support you. Now, the rub with it is that one of the reasons they do it is they fatten you up for the New Year's celebration.
Huh.
So, but in general, it's a very lucky sign.
The only thing that I can think about from what you've just said is that I just the other morning I was lying in bed with some tears in my eyes. I had a bad dream, and I said to my husband, I think I'm 60 years old, but I'm still always looking for someone to take care of me. Isn't that funny?
Well, it's a beautiful thought, and I'm very glad that you were able to communicate that. It's a truism, and I think it's very good of you to notice it.
Okay, Margaret, thanks for calling back. Final caller of the morning is Lisa, who is watching on cable channel 12 over in Yorktown. Date of birth, October 19th, 1954. Lisa, good morning. You're on with Mary Michele.
Good morning.
Good morning, Lisa. Did you have a particular question?
Yes, I do. I'm kind of at a crossroads right now in my personal life, in my marriage, and I'm frightened to make any kind of decisions right now. And I'm also considering some changes in my career, and I want to know if this is a good time, and as far as any decision-making goes.
Okay. I think you've made your decision in terms of your relationship, and I think that it is not going to be easy for a while for you to extricate yourself from this situation. Is that what you're going to do you think?
That's exactly it. I'm very frightened to make any kind of a move, and I'm very nervous about regrets, and I'm really not sure what I'm going to do.
Well, I think what you need to focus on is the work, because I don't think that the resolution about your relationship is going to come soon. The Sun in Libra, the Moon in Cancer, Mars in Capricorn, you see, Mars is where we get our energy and where we can work and where we can go out and face the world and make things happen. And Mars is having a very good energy focus right now from the planet Jupiter. So in terms of your work, it's important for you to get out there and try and start something new. You're extremely disciplined. You understand the nature of work. You shouldn't on any level fear how you're going to make money or how you're going to take care of yourself or any of that kind of thing. So I think that if you can focus more on that and kind of let the nature of the relationship ruminate. Make choices, even if you change your mind later.
Okay.
Okay, because I know that it's always hard with Libra to make the choice.
Oh, definitely.
But make the choice.
Okay.
Okay, and then you may make mistakes about the relationships, the choices that you've made. Go on and come back. If you've made a mistake, you've made a mistake. It won't go away completely. But the work is really important right now.
Okay.
Okay?
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks
Thank you for calling, Lisa. Have a good day. Just a couple seconds left, Mary Michele. Any final thoughts now that you have told people everything for the next week? You'll be back on Friday of next week, by the way, yes? I just looked at my schedule to make sure.
Yes, I'm here next Friday.
Any final thoughts for this week? Anything we should be aware
Well,
of?
it is the full moon on Tuesday, so I think that people ought to, whenever the full moon comes around, it's kind of about things coming to a head. I think of very graphic images like pimples, when they burst, that kind of thing. That's the full moon. And you've talked to policemen or nurses or people that work in hospitals or whatever. It's the time when there's more activity around these places. So with the moon, the full moon is in the sign of Virgo. The sun is in Pisces. It's always its opposite sign. This is going to be very much about details. This full moon is about trying to resolve our inner feelings and thoughts with perhaps dealing with details that we normally don't like to deal with. So when the full moon comes on Tuesday, think about that.
Mary Michele, have a good week. We'll see you next Friday morning. Mary Michele, every Friday here at WVIP, taking your calls on astrology. We had a lot of calls today, a lot of good information also.
Astrology is both a science and an art. The science of observing planetary cycles, and the art of interpreting how they reflect events and experiences on Earth. As above, so below, said the ancient Egyptian Hermes, and indeed the solar system and universe are reflected in man. An astrological birth chart is a picture which can reveal any being's life purpose. It is calculated for the beginning moment of life. The key components of a birth chart are the 10 planets, the 12 signs of the zodiac, and the 12 astrological houses. The 12 signs of the zodiac constitute 12 different energies or styles. There are 4 different elements associated with the signs. Fire signs, Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius, emphasize independence, spontaneity, dynamism, and extroversion. Earth signs, Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn, focus on practicality, productivity, and physical action. Air signs, Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius, key in on mental expression, communication, intellect, and the world of ideas. Water signs, Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces, are introspective, impressionable, emotionally sensitive, and imaginative. The 10 planets represent various functions or principles within your personality or psyche, and the 12 astrological houses are 12 different areas of life experience. The 10 planets symbolize life's basic archetypal energies, such as your drives, your thoughts, and your physical expression. Although there are other planets in the horoscope, when people ask you your sign, they're referring only to your sun sign. The sun has to do with your ego and your selfhood, the physical body, and your vitality. Therefore, your sign frequently describes a part of the body that you pay attention to. In a woman's chart, the sun often describes the men in her life, the father, the husband. Now let's talk about people who were born with the sun in Aries, the first sign. Aries people love to initiate things, as shown by this quote from Aries Thomas Jefferson. They have the pioneering spirit. On the other hand, they have problems in persevering and persisting. Indeed, Aries, a fire sign, prefers the challenge of any situation rather than its completion. Aries tends to be impulsive and impetuous. They love the spice of competition, which is often an additional motivator. Aries people love to be the first to do something. From Johann Sebastian Bach, who wrote the basic rules for classical music as we know it, to Wilbur Wright, pioneer of the skies. There is an adolescent quality about Aries because of the enthusiasm to begin. But Aries can be somewhat abrasive and brusque, as evidenced by the famous Aryan philosopher Thomas Hobbes, who said life is nasty, brutish, and short. Though they can flare up very quickly, they'll then forget about it in a minute or so. More than any other sign, Aries symbolizes selfhood. Consider the quote, "I think, therefore I am," by the Aryan Descartes. But Aries can be egocentric. There is a certain selfishness and inability to share. They often can't see the other person's point of view, as illustrated by this one-man band. Aries can be easy to spot because they often resemble the ram, which happens to be the symbol for this sign. Look at Joan Crawford, an archetypal Aries look. So now we've seen how a planet works in a sign. One of the most commonly asked questions is about the rising sign, also called the first house or the ascendant. It is determined by the time and the place of birth, as well as the date of birth. It is the beginning of the horoscope. It can describe your appearance, your mask, your persona, what other people relate to. The sign on your first house, which is your rising sign, will be a major personality indicator. When Aries is your rising sign, impulsiveness and impetuousness are very much present. Any planets in the first house have a particular importance and are said to be angular. We will continue to refer to the importance of angular planets. An angular planet is defined as a planet in or very close to the first, fourth, seventh, or 10th house. As you remember, there are a total of 10 planets in the horoscope and 12 signs. So far, we've only talked about one, the sun. Let's talk about the moon. The moon represents your emotional patterns, your instincts, your habits, your personal taste in food or clothes. The moon is a feminine energy. The sign of the moon will often describe how you relate to your mother. In a man's horoscope, the moon can also characterize his mate as well. When we talk about this emotional planet, the moon, in the precipitous sign of Aries, the individual is very emotionally impulsive. It can also indicate that the women in that person's life can be very active or even reckless. When the feminine moon is in the first house, the person can have a moon-shaped face. They will also have other lunar tendencies, such as a strong family tie, particularly to their mothers. They may work in female-related industries, such as fashion. Finally, a strong moon in a man's horoscope can frequently indicate homosexuality. Now we've talked about 2 of the 10 bodies, the sun and the moon. And we've seen how they worked in the first sign of Aries and in the first house. The third planet is Mercury. Mercury has to do with all mental functions, such as reasoning and cognition, the ability to speak, read, write, and teach. Mercury represents all forms of communication: telephone, newspapers, mail, and books. Mercury in the first house indicates the person who is always a speaker, even if they are simply salespersons. They frequently make their living by teaching, writing, or talking. Now, when we put the planet of communication in the impulsive sign of Aries, it describes the person who says anything as soon as it comes into his or her head. There is no editing process. They have a completely impulsive way of speaking. The fourth planet is Venus. Venus has a lot to do with money and valuables. It also represents artistic and aesthetic areas. But more frequently, Venus represents social and love matters. Together with the moon, Venus is one of the 2 feminine principles. And in a man's horoscope, the sign his Venus is in will usually describe what will turn him on. In both men's and women's horoscopes, Venus will describe your social style. The planet of love in the impulsive sign of Aries indeed falls in love at first sight. The greatest zest in the relationship is in the initial stage, when the other person still represents a challenge and is not so readily available. In terms of aesthetics and physical beauty, Venus in the first house will often describe someone who is indeed physically beautiful or who has an artistic disposition or talent. Brooke Shields, who is indeed physically beautiful, has an angular Venus. But even the pleasant attributes of Venus have a negative side. People with a strong